And welcome to Techopia Live. If you are here, you are obviously on our Facebook page, or maybe you're watching this a little bit later on either our Twitter feed or our LinkedIn account, or maybe even YouTube for that matter. We are here though today talking once again about tech and what influences the tech community very much so. As you already know, here on Techopia, we're really focused on making sure that everybody is informed of a variety of news that's taking place. And of course, we're very open in talking about how we can embrace, grow, and also support the tech community. So today's episode is a little bit different because usually we have a slew of entrepreneurs telling you about their product maybe, or maybe what they're trying to change. And sometimes, of course, we have CEOs and executives giving us some insight on what they think on a surrounding topic. Today, we have those variety of executives with us today and talking about a very, very important subject that has pretty much been on the minds and the tongues of so many entrepreneurs, small business owners in this city at this point in time. You can go anywhere and you say tax changes to a business owner and they go, ugh. So we thought it was necessary for us to bring a panel of experts on here today to talk a little bit about the various aspects of how this influences business, because once again, we know that it does affect a lot of the companies that we deal with on a daily basis, and we know that it is a big change and could be a huge shift in the way we do business. But I don't think we always understand exactly what it means. So today we're going to try and shed a little bit of light on it. We know it's a huge subject, and we know there's no chance this show would have to be like 5 hours long, and we would have to invite Justin Trudeau here to come and talk about it as well, and the finance manager, Bill Murray. We'll have to get everybody here. So today is just a quick insight, but with me today, I got Alana Marr from Purley Robertson Hill and McDougall, a full-service law firm that focuses a lot on business as well. Here with me, we have John Reed from the CATA Alliance, the founder. John has always been very outspoken and very articulate with regards to what's happening in business, and especially with regards to the changes in tax. And then, of course, we have Susan Riches here, co-founder and CEO of Number Crunch. You are an entrepreneur. You've done so much within the community. You're very much involved in Invest Ottawa and on the board there as well. And you're talking today here from both an entrepreneurial perspective and accountant perspective, which is what really this is all about. It's numbers and it's business. So let's firstly start with you, Alana. From your perspective a little bit, can you shed a little bit of light firstly on what is these changes that we as a business owner or a tech entrepreneur for that matter is really looking at, and then, you know, how the government is approaching that? Let's start with that.
First off, thank you for having me. So in July of this year, the government released a consultation paper entitled Tax Planning Using Private Corporations. These are far-reaching changes that are really going to have an effect on any Canadians who are involved in an ownership structure that uses private corporations. In the media, I'm sure you've heard about the attempt to have a fair tax structure, a neutral tax structure. So this is the government's first attempt at implementing their fair tax plan. So they are targeting three things with three issues that they see that are currently unfair and not neutral about our current tax system. So first, income splitting using private corporations, which basically takes income that would normally be realized by a high tax rate individual and shifting that to be realized by lower tax rate individuals, which are usually family members of the main business owner. Second, you are looking at holding a passive investment portfolio in your private corporation, which involves taking retained earnings from your business and acquiring a investment portfolio with those retained earnings instead of reinvesting them in growing the business. And third, they are looking at taking the corporation's income that business owners are taking and converting them to capital gains, which receive a favorable tax treatment. So the goal with all of this that the government is looking at is rejigging the process to a way that they see is more fair. So regardless of how you earn your income, whether it's as an individual, personally, as an employee, or whether it's through your private corporation, that everyone is being treated fairly and being taxed on the same basis.
So thank you very much for clarifying that for us a little bit. Now, John, once again, we hear all that and it sounds, okay, fair enough, fair. We hear the word fair. And we agree with entrepreneurship that it is about fair on so many levels. But you're also someone that, once again, is very much involved in these conversations with entrepreneurs on a consistent basis. You just recently had a discussion with Ed Bryant as well from Sanford Managers. You also had with Michael Horn from Horn and Associates. I mean, can you share with us a little bit, what do you think? What does this mean? What is this new change, or what could it mean for entrepreneurs?
Well, I think the first point, this was launched in the summer, high summer. I was on the Baltic Sea at the time, and if you've ever tried to mount a campaign from a 3x6 computer screen, you should try, because we're not quite there yet. So there's a matter of process here and fair play. Something this significant, we should be spending longer than 75 days. We should be following best practice in terms of consultations. So we moved away from best practice. Small businesses have to follow best practices to be successful. Government should follow the best practices if they are going to come up with the guidance and changes that you need to strengthen the economy. So when you add up the proposed rule changes, the addition doesn't work out too well, because it really is an attack on equity, and equity is used to deal with unforeseen circumstances. It's used to plan for retirements. And also, think about this in terms of Ottawa, because I've heard from the charities, if you take any step to tilt businesses in the wrong direction, their ability to donate to charities, to be corporate citizens, is eroded. And I think in Canada going forward, given our deficit position, I think we're going to need that community goodwill to make up for the gaps. So the government has created significant uncertainty. It's tarring people with the same brush, and it's not following best practices in terms of consulting with all the players. No wonder we're in such a mess. No wonder there's such a maelstrom in the economy.
No, thank you for that insight. I mean, once again, it is, I think your key message is that there needs to be more input, there needs to be more insight. Obviously, it's affecting a lot more people on so much more levels than I think maybe has been given credit for. And it's interesting that there's been so much discussion surrounding it. Now, once again, Susan, the wonderful thing about yourself is you've kind of played a gamut of roles, but as an entrepreneur at heart, I mean, how has this affected your business? I mean, once again, we already know entrepreneurship is not a walk in the park for anybody. And I think a lot of us can just like really relate to that. But maybe you can share with it, this, if you look at this, do you see this, this is just another obstacle in the slew of challenges that already lies ahead for the entrepreneurs that's out there, and even some of the stuff that you've had to deal with?
Absolutely, it is. It really is, because the two themes that we've touched on here are fair and best practices. And the messaging around this has been comparing this to somebody who has this particular situation where they can do income sprinkling through their private corporation versus, let's say, an employee who's receiving a $220,000 salary. And it's a snapshot in time, and you really just can't take a snapshot in time and represent the differences of risk and reward that these two groups of individuals that are being compared would have went through. First of all, there's 100,000 businesses launched every year in Canada, 80% of them which are launched from personal funds. People max their credit cards, they refinance their mortgages, they go to undue lengths in order to meet their obligations to pay their employees. The country is built on employees. Half the workforce works for small businesses in Canada, defined as businesses with less than 100 employees. So these entrepreneurs are 6% of our population. This cohort is extremely ambitious. They've put a lot on the line. And at the end of the day now, they have followed best practices. The successful ones follow best practices, which for about 3 decades now has been setting up these tax structures to help mitigate some of the risks of the high years and the low years. And now we're in a situation where those best practices that they have followed are going to be negated. And it questions fair play for sure. And it has people, whether it impacts them this year or not, or next year, it's the spirit of it that has been insulting to a number of entrepreneurs that every day take on such tremendous risks in comparison to their neighbors.
No, I can see this is as a passionate subject for you, and I know, and I was like, yeah, exactly. She's ready. She's ready. She's like, can I just want to? No, and I'm glad. This is venting. This is venting. But it's also, and that's why we have such a diverse panel to kind of touch on all these aspects, because once again, I mean, you say fair, Alana, and that's what we want to be. We want to be fair, and we want to be able to articulate a message that is fair and also sharing both sides of the spectrum, so to speak. But there is a fact that this population, and especially here in Ottawa, we can speak to. I mean, just look at the amount of people that's being employed by tech startup companies. It's pretty spectacular, and what is being done here, and how the world is looking at our city more than ever, purely because of startups and amazing companies that's starting. So we really don't want to try and hinder that in any shape or form. Alana, maybe you can speak a little bit towards it. So let's say this all takes place and it all moves forward, and you're an entrepreneur that's watching this now, and this is the first time you hear that. You're like, I have no idea how this really affects me. I haven't sprinkled anything because I don't have anything to sprinkle. I'm just trying to get through the day. A lot of the entrepreneurs are like, what's it comes sprinkling? I've never been sprinkling anything. I've just been handing it all out and paying for my expenses. But maybe you can share with us, what is that? What would it mean? What can a business owner maybe do to try and prepare now for this, or what should they possibly do?
So I think it's really important to note that we are still in the middle of the consultation period. So the government is accepting submissions until October 2nd, and I think even just from the comments that we've heard today and through the media, I think you see a big reaction to this. So I think it'll be very interesting to see what changes, if any, are made, because these are currently just proposed changes. You know, whether it's professionals, whether it's tech companies, there are industry associations that are out there advocating on behalf of their members. So for now, there will probably need to be some major reorganizations undertaken if they're implemented as is. But I think it'll be important to watch how the government reacts to all of the comments that are coming in, because they're very forceful, and I think there's a lot of, because the focus is on fairness, I think a lot of people are coming forward and saying, you know, just because I have used a private corporation doesn't mean that I am doing this way. It is because I am, you know, risking a lot of my own money, and you know, there are good times and there are bad times. So I think people coming forward with their stories and how it really is for them out there as they are building their business. It'll be interesting to see whether the proposals go through as is, or whether there are changes that come.
Maybe you can pass that to John. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit again. What can we do in moving forward and kind of letting our voice being heard?
Well, I think the key, one of the themes is, what do we want to be known for? And unfortunately, a lack of civility in public discussion is not one of the things we want to message to the world, because they pay attention. They also have a weight scale, what's positive and what's negative. I think we need to look at a larger discussion. What will influence capital decisions? What influences locational decisions? You can't narrow band this discussion, because sometimes the impact will only be 3, 5, 10 years from now. So I think as Canadians, we're much more comfortable with a more collegial approach. We have unfortunately pit one group against the other. This is being picked up. I know we're set up on networks globally. There are no borders anymore. This is just not a unique Canadian discussion. We're talking about how Canada looks at entrepreneurs. We're talking about terms and conditions that people weigh in terms of whether I invest here or there. So I think, again, our view and our recommendation is to take the proposals off the table, open up a discussion based on fairness and equity, and really create a larger discussion on how we can build Canada's economic strength, drawing on innovation, talent, and marketplace. The way they did this and where we are now is really a step in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I do. I think I completely agree with everything that's being said. I think one of the wonderful silver linings in all of this is it's really got people thinking about what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and where the needs are. So if this isn't it, then what is it? What do we need? And I think that's where the beauty in the discussion is. I think the principle here, I assume, we were trying to do away with tax evasion and mitigate that problem. This is probably a bit of a byproduct from an exercise that did not result in this type of uproar from Canadians. We certainly appreciate a lot that's coming out of this government. It's just this one, perhaps a little bit of a misstep. The timing has been difficult. Tax accountants, as an example, have just come off of 60-hour work weeks through the heavy tax season. They're on vacation. Nobody was prepared for this type of 75-day consultation period. So I think we're moving towards. I sure hope that we're going to see reconsideration of these proposed changes, and it is going to continue a dialogue about what we can do to get behind our innovation. I've been looking up stats like crazy, reading StatsCan, Industry Canada's website, all the kinds of information I can get that the government produces, and innovation. So entrepreneurs created 1 million new jobs between 2005 and 2015, of which greater than 85% came from small business growth. And so this is a huge economic engine for Canada. I think everybody involved would recognize that. So we just need to work together to figure out what the fairness, what fairness means, and how we can succeed in getting the revenue dollars to the government for the great services that we enjoy in Canada in a way that also grows our economic engine of entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much. For those of you that's just tuning in or watching this a little bit later on, we are here today with a phenomenal panel talking a little bit more about the recent tax changes that's been proposed and put on the table, for that matter, and just getting some insight from a variety of executives. Thank you so much, Alana Marr from Purley Robertson Hill and McDougall, John Reed from Canada Alliance, and of course Susan Richards from Number Crunch. Thank you so very much for being here today, and once again sharing. I love what you just said as well, and what this really comes down to is it has opened up a discussion about entrepreneurship and about small business, which sometimes is not enough talked about. So this is great because it's now said what it really takes to run a business. What does it really take, and what's really involved in that? Because I think at the end of the day, for any entrepreneur that's starting up, yes, money in some cases is the byproduct, but many, many times there's that passion, that drive, that idea to be a part of something and creating a community, which really is the starting point of it. The first thing is not, how can I pay less? That's not, that's kind of like, once again, sprinkle what? I have nothing to sprinkle. So I think, exactly. I think it really is just something that eventually evolves as you grow and become better in business. So thank you so much for your insight today. And for those of you that's watching this, make sure that you go to the various supporting industry associates and make your voice heard. I think that's really what I wanted to get out. So if you're out there and you have something to say, you need to get it out there and share it with the people that can help put that voice together. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for joining us. And we want to remind you guys that if you haven't done so already, join us either on Mondays at 12:15 or on Wednesdays at 12:15. Today we are here at KRP Properties, which certainly is more than space, because they are helping us to talk about things that are so important. So thank you once again to my panel, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.